Peter Usborne, thank you so much for your time today. It's your 44 Frankfurt. How is it to be back?
Lovely.
Yeah.
It doesn't change that much, does it, the Frankfurt Book Fair? I mean, I think we were always in these buildings and it was always a bit intimidating and a bit too large to really cope with. I love the whole atmosphere. I love the ambitiousness. This used to be the Leipzig Book Fair, of course, now it's the Frankfurt Book Fair. And the absurd number of foreigners and the ridiculous number of books. I think George Orwell once said, nothing is more depressing for an author than to see books en masse. And I think that's a little bit the same nothing is more depressing for a publisher than to see publishers en masse. But it's stimulating, it gets you going, it gets the adrenaline going, and every time a foreigner comes to our stand and says we love anything, I go, oh, more, I love it.
Well,
I love foreign. To me, anything foreign is good.
So you say foreign's good, but in your talk you said the first stall you'd ever go to is a British one. Very proud.
No, well, I'm saying here.
Here, at a Frankfurt.
The first bunch of people I actually investigate is my own compatriots, because I do think we, the British, have for 150 or 200 years been amazingly successful in children's media. You know, all those R.L. Stevenson and Harry Potter, and one author after the other has come from Great Britain. There's something about the British and children's books, very little known, very little publicised, but we have made an astonishing impact on the world in children's media. And so I do tend to go around the British stands first, because I think there's more electricity coming out of the British contingent than any other. I was saying I think the second biggest contributor is France, because of their sheer cultural experience, their talent, their taste, their love of art, their media-ishness.
Absolutely. So, I mean, how tough is the children's industry, would you say, at the moment?
Not tough, no. Of course there's plenty of competition, but very few people do what we do. And if you wanted to, you would find it astonishingly difficult to compete with us, because we've become so embedded and so strong, and we have policies that stretch back 10, 15, 20 years. And if you wanted to do them, it would take you 10, 15, 20 years to imitate them. So it's terribly difficult now to come up against Usborne Publishing. I dare say people will have heard what I'm saying there, and about being in 7 languages and everything. They would think, wouldn't it be nice for us to be in 7 languages? Okay, see you in 15 years' time. I mean, it's a huge thing to undertake. And I mean, just to get into Germany, it took us 2 years preparation, at least a year and a half, to find a distributor and then negotiate a contract and then convince the salespeople and go to a sales conference and then appoint our own staff. Find that it's a hell of a big thing to do and very hard to replicate.
But as well as this great success, you just mentioned that you don't think any of your employees come in with sort of a Monday morning sort of syndrome.
I do say that quite frequently, that I want to feel that the job at Usborne Publishing it is worth doing. If you're in children's books, you're a bit like a doctor or a nurse. When you go home in the evening, I doubt whether you have to say, what the hell was I doing all day? Oh, earning a salary, that's all. I was once in advertising, very immediately after Oxford University. I did 3 or 4 months as a trainee in an advertising agency, and I was very conscious of this feeling that you went home and you ask yourself, what did I do all day? Oh, I tried to persuade more people to drink more milk, or egg, or Mackeson's beer. What was the point of all that? But in children's books, you'd never, ever have to go home and say, why on earth, what did I wasted those 7 or 8 hours in the office for?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is an incredible privilege.
I'm sure. And you were talking about your Oxford days. When I was reading about you, I was surprised to see your involvement in Private Eye.
Oh, I started in Private Eye.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean,
years and years ago. That was the first thing I did. Well, I started a so-called funny magazine at Oxford University when I was a student. It wasn't very funny, to tell you the truth, but it became very funny because it gradually, over the terms, recruited more and more talent at Oxford University. And at the end of our time at Oxford University, one of us, it wasn't me, suggested, why don't we go on doing this lovely magazine we've had so much fun with in real life? And everybody said, shut up. And I said to myself, not that bad an idea.
Yeah.
And I went to America, as one does after Oxford, for 3 months, and came back and rang up all the people I'd known at the Oxford magazine and said, come on guys, what about doing this in real life? And most of them said yes. And then I appointed an editor who actually I hadn't known before, who was a Cambridge man called Chris Booker, and we found an office and we bought a company off the shelf, and it was called Press Dram, and we sat around saying, what are we going to call this new magazine? And I wanted to call it Yellow Press, and somebody else wanted to call it The Bladder, and somebody said Private Eye, and I said, no, that's terrible, that's detectives. But Private Eye was the one that got the vote. And so we started Private Eye. And I left my job in advertising after 3 or 4 months and took a full-time job running Private Eye. I was only the managing director, I wasn't the editorial person.
Yeah, sure.
And I was there for 3 years, and it stabilised, and it was making a profit, and I had nothing.
And no regrets that you didn't stay with it?
Oh, I absolutely was clear. I did not want to be the managing director of Private Eye at the age of 66 or 76. No, absolutely not. I went to a French business school called INSEAD, which was just getting going then, and that was an amazing. I went there because I talk a lot of languages, and the INSEAD, you had to talk at least 3 languages in those days to get in, and I thought that must be interesting, and it was.
Yeah.
Now you don't. Now it's all English. You don't have to talk any language to get into INSEAD in Fontainebleau. But and then I came back and muddled it back into publishing.
Of course. And one quick question, which I'm going to ask everyone hopefully today: what is Frankfurt Book Fair's best kept secret?
Concrete floors. You don't realise that if you want to walk around the whole of the Frankfurt Book Fair, your feet are going to take a hell of a bashing, because it's a very long way and it's very hard on the feet.
Yeah.
And some crap restaurants. We went to a restaurant last night, I won't name it. It took an hour to serve the main course after the first course. We're never going there again.